So in the last video, I built this bamboo gravel bike frame from a kit that I got from Bamboo Bicycle Club. I've been putting it off for a while now, but mainly because I haven't been quite sure what I'm going to do with the paint on this thing. But a whole lot of blue boxes just arrived from Bamboo Bicycle Club, so it's probably time to get cracking. So I'm like 90% sure about what I want to do with the paint job on this thing. There's two things I'm worried about. Number one is whether I can actually achieve the look that I want. And then number two, if it actually looks good with the raw bamboo. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'll use the fork as a bit of a dummy and do a test paint on that. Exactly the process I would do on these. And then while I do that, I can prep this for paint. There's a few little jobs to do around here, a little bit of sanding, that kind of stuff. So let's crack on, eh? So this video is going to be a long one. I've put all the chapters down below so you can click around and watch whichever bits interest you the most. I have put a lot of detail and effort into the whole video and voiceover pretty much everything, so I recommend sticking around. There's heaps of gems in there for you. So I'm just masking off some of the black bits that I want to keep using just normal electrical tape. I find this stuff gives us a really nice edge. And then I masked off all the important bits that I really don't want to get any paint. After a little sand, I hit it with some sprayed out bike pink neon. This stuff gets everywhere, so it's super important that you get your masking absolutely dialed and spray this away from anything that you could possibly end up getting it on. I'm really happy with how this all kind of came out, and time to move on to the next plan. Kind of changed my mind again. I'm going for like Pete my drain kind of vibes here with like block colors and then the black bands. So what I'm doing is I'm just masking, or at least starting to mask off the bands, and then I can mask off everything else, like all the bamboo and the bits that are gonna get painted. I think I'm gonna do like white, blue, yellow, pink, black. I think that's the go here. Just simplifying it up a little bit, because like with the bamboo already there's a lot going on, and then you're kind of highlighting the fact that it's these individual pieces put together with the bamboo. So once I finished all the masking, I started off with the first part of the paint. The process here is kind of going to be paint one piece, get it nice and dialed, and then mask that off and paint the next bit. So a bit of rudimentary masking going on here with a bit of a plastic bag and some tape. Like I said before, the stuff gets absolutely everywhere, so you got to be pretty good with your masking. This blue color is really lovely as well. Probably my favorite sprayed out bike paint to paint with. They all kind of seem to be a little bit different with their formulations. Blue's such a nice color. Weird because it's different to the tin, but pretty happy with it. Okay. The next color on the list was the neon yellow. I painted the drive side dropout with that, and then repeated the process with the opposite side with a bit of neon pink to give it that little bit of accent, and also tie it a little bit to the fork. Okay, so that's all the paint done. Well, for now. I've got all the colors on underneath here, so hopefully nothing's bled or ruined anything while I've been painting and handling it. The next step is obviously to take it all out of this. Fingers crossed everything went well. And then I've ordered a clear coat that's going to go over the whole thing once this paint kind of hardens up. I normally like to leave the paint for a good few days, so over the weekend should be fine. And that just gives it a chance to like really harden up, and then you hit it with a clear coat over that. So, but yeah, let's whip it all out, and hopefully she has gone pretty smoothly and looks like what I want it to look like. I found my demasking concentration paste to be a new one for me. Stoked on how this kind of comes out. Everything was masked off pretty well. That insulation tape's actually a really clutch thing to use to mask off stuff and get some nice clean lines, mainly because you can really pull it nice and tight. A massive thank you to Bamboo Bicycle Club for supporting this build and sending me out one of these kits to try myself. Bamboo Bicycle Club is an awesome little company, really pushing the world of these bamboo bikes forward and have some wicked products. They've got heaps of different types of frames, you know, full lugged ones like mine to custom flex builds with tutorials and in-person workshops, all the knowledge and support that you could possibly need to tackle one of these builds by yourself. Please go check them out and tell them I said hi. There's a link to their socials and website down below. So good. Honestly, it looks amazing. So stoked on how it's turned out. I've given it a good few days for the paint to kind of settle down and cure before I'm tackling this next step. The next step, well, the real next step is I've got to put in these inserts for the bottle cages. Little steel inserts like that, and we glue them into the frame, but I've painted a few of them black last night. And then the big decision was, where do I put the bottle cages? Because, you know, gravel wise, ideally you want them quite low down so you could put a little half frame bag up the top here. So I spent maybe an hour just trying to figure out where these go, where they sit, all of that, and then kind of come to the conclusion at the end that I'm just going to put them bang in the middle. Number one, that's going to look the best when it doesn't have a bag, and then it's also going to be the easiest for, you know, when it doesn't have a bag, I can just reach down and grab the bottles, you know, if I'm actually riding the thing. What's nice is that I can then use one of these bad boys, which is like a extender bracket or whatever, and so that will go into your current holes, and then it moves the bottle a little bit further down. So that'll then give me the space to put in the bag later. Because to be honest, I'm probably going to be riding this thing 90% of the time without the bag. A little bit nervous about these. There's a bit of drilling and a bit of hole making. And a bit of gluing, but once I've done them, then I can clear coat this whole frame. I haven't quite decided, I might also put a couple bottle cage holes up here so that I can put my bag on here without the straps. Haven't decided that yet, but we'll see how these two go, and then we'll make the decision on if I'm doing that one nice and easy. Okay, get these done by the end of the day, clear coat. Oh, you guys met the new workshop dog. This is Gary. Yeah, Gary. The process for putting in these bottle cage bosses is pretty straightforward. And if you look on Bamboo Bicycle Club's YouTube channel, there's pretty comprehensive video about how to do it. I'll leave that down below if you are building one of these frames. Definitely watch that a couple times before tackling this. What's also pretty cool, I mean, it's another great thing about the bamboo bikes, is that you can literally put these anywhere that you want. I think it's so handy to just be able to nudge one in. I thought it would probably just be a good idea to live with a bike for a bit before I actually go and just bang a whole lot of holes in it where I wouldn't end up using them. So I'll do that at a later stage, maybe pop a few extra ones in as I need them. Right, so there's no turning back now. There's holes in my frame. Reasonably happy with where they are. You just got to make a decision, eh? I've got the little hardware that I painted black, and I've threaded in some hardware there. This is going to not only protect the threads when I go to epoxy this in, but it's also going to give me a place to actually like force them down with some electrical tape. You can see me here watching for probably the third or fourth time the video on Bamboo Bicycle Club's thing on how to do this, and I mixed up some of the epoxy. Now this is the epoxy that came with the original bamboo build. The stuff's like hella strong. Just got to make sure that you mix it up, you know, really properly before you get in and use it, otherwise it's just not going to set. I laid a pretty liberal amount per boss just to make sure I got a good adhesion, and then I went in there and kind of wiped it back. Those look incredible. Then here you see me doing the electrical tape. Now this should just hold the bosses down and let it cure. I'm going to let it cure for probably a couple days here. They went reasonably smoothly. They look incredible. Painting them black was such a good idea because the epoxy that I'm using is black, so it actually just blends in and fillets everything. Now we just wait a little bit and then give everything a clear coat and we can start putting it together probably later this week. I've been waiting days for it to stop raining. It's a bit of a pain because I can only paint outside and I need to get that top coat on. It's been alright because it's basically meant I could just take my time with the frame, do those bottle cages perfectly, and also mask up and make sure everything's all good. I also figured out, as you can see, how I'm going to spray the bike. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do, might as well put the wheels together. So I've got these pretty nice GRX aluminium 700 wheels. Lovely wheel, tubeless ready. They even come with the tubeless valve, pre-installed tape all ready to go. So this should be a pretty easy install. You're right, a bit of foreshadowing here was not that easy. These tires are ridiculous. I've never seen that before. Those are never coming off. You know what I've done? It's on backwards. So I get to do that again. All good, just in time, sun's come out. Let's go spray this bike, eh? Okay, I finally got some sunshine. It's hella windy, that's why you're all the way over there. I want to get any of this 2K on my lens. I've already got a couple blue specks on it already. So the goal here is to get like absolute coverage. What I'm doing is locking in the paint and protecting the bamboo. That's the goal with this stuff anyway. So I want a nice even coat. I'm probably going to have to do a couple of them, but as much coverage as possible. This whole can's definitely going to get used. This is actually super important. If you get a lot of moisture in your bamboo when it's not protected, you get a lot of movement, which then leads to cracking of the frame. So really taking my time to make sure I get absolute coverage. Okay, it's looking alright. I'm going to go get the fork. What's nice about this stuff is it goes on glossy and then dries back to clear. Last coat, it sounds like. Not much left in the can. Just got to focus again on the bamboo, but more on like the joins, any places that stuff can ingress. And I'm just going to pretty much dump the whole can. Should be enough. And there she is, finished frame. So happy with this frame. Can't believe how well it turned out. I love the black bottle boss holes. I love the different color blocks that really accent that bamboo. Those little black stripes just really make the color pop. So stoked on this. Let's get into building this thing. Right, so we're pretty much ready to go. A few little things to do first before we can really crack onto it. So I'll probably put all the hardware together on the frame and then we'll probably tackle the fork. That's the first thing to do. After that, it should start to go pretty smoothly. The thing I'm the most nervous about is probably doing the hydraulic drop bar brakes. I've never done that before, so we'll see when we get to it. A nice feature that comes with this bamboo gravel frame is that it's got modular dropouts, so you can actually decide what you want to use. You can either go for horizontal dropouts, linear dropouts, or like what I'm going here, the through axle one, the derailleur hanger built in. And welcome to the section of Julian doesn't have the right tools for the job. The first one that I did was putting on the crown race, And I kind of cheat a little bit here by putting the crown race in the oven at 200 degrees for 10 minutes and then letting it expand so I could kind of push it onto the fork itself and then just lightly tap the last little bits with a rubber mallet. Just being super careful here not to, number one, make it go on skew, but also not chip my paint. It worked well enough in the end. The second thing that I really don't recommend doing is banging in these headset cups with a mallet. I mean, yeah, I've done it every single time I've built one of these bikes, and it does work, but you've got to be so careful. Yes, I should probably get the right tools, but they are quite expensive. So if any tool companies wanna talk, I'm down to chat. What's pretty awesome is once those are out the way, is we can actually start assembling this bike. The first thing to do is cut down our steerer tube of our fork, which is a little bit of a daunting process, but if you take your time and be really careful with it, you can get away with doing it yourself at home. Again, I don't quite have the right tool for the job, which is a little steerer tube cutting jig. So I like to just take my time and make sure everything's really nicely marked. I first mark my spot with some masking tape and then use a headset spacer to get a nice perfect little round line on the steerer tube. Then I chuck on some very important PPE, which you need to use when cutting carbon, and I'll take a hacksaw with a real fine blade and start to just score perfectly along the whole line all the way around. You see me turning the fork over and over, and then it should cut pretty straight once you get tuck into it, as you can see here, nice and straight. Last little job here is just sanding off the edges so there's no burrs. Sweet, so now that we're done, we can take one of these little star nut bad boys and put it in here and just have a big smack at it. I'm only playing. Last time I did one of these builds using a carbon fork, you guys roasted me for using one of these star nuts. I've got the proper thing. It's a little compression plug, goes in there and gives something for the stem to clamp to, and you're also not smacking away with this thing. Complete this little build. Get all the pieces in. I've left myself quite a bit of space here underneath the stem. Just number one, I think I'm going to ride this more in a comfort mode, and then I do have the option later of going in and removing a little bit of steerer tube so that I can drop that head position down. We'll see how we go. I think I really got to dial in this thing later. So this is a gravel specific handlebar that I'm chucking in here. It's just a little bit wider and probably a little bit more flared in its drops. I thought about going with a fully integrated stem and handlebar specific for a gravel frame, but in the end I'm glad I didn't for this part of the build, because I am going to want to, dial in that position later by maybe swapping out a stem or handlebar or something like that. So starting on the drivetrain, I've gone with full GRX drivetrain. This is the long cage version, so I can take a 42 tooth cassette at the back. The cassette I went with was the 11 to 42 XT cassette. Bottom bracket here is the Ultegra one, so it's just a little bit nicer than the Tiegra. Just, better bearings, smoother ride, that kind of stuff. And then I went with the single speed GRX crankset, which is the 40 tooth narrow wide chain set at a 70mm crank length. It's not the highest ratio for when you're climbing in that granny gear, but I don't really mind it like that. I quite like riding in a heavier gear when I'm going up a hill. What I do like is going fast when you're in those high gears. So this will be 40 to 11, which should get me heaps of speed when I'm on the flat. It also has a narrow wide chain tooth setup, so I'm not going to drop a chain when getting into the bumpy stuff. Alright, time to start on these brakes. So these are the 410 GRX brakes. They're hydraulic. All I'm doing here is just kind of test fitting so that I can start the cable routing. So when you build the frame, they do recommend that you do all of your cable routing, or at least put in some placeholders so that when you come to do this step, it's a little bit easier. Now, I did do that when I built the frame, but I ended up taking it all out when I painted the frame so I could get a better finish on the frame and make it a bit easier on myself when masking and all of that. Normally I'm not too scared of internal cable routing. I've got a bit of a process here where I'll run a string or an old brake cable down, tape it to the hose and just pull it through. But I think just with this setup that they've got, I ended up fighting with it a little bit. In the end, the kind of curve that comes around the corner here was just a little bit tight to do it that way that I normally would do it, and I ended up getting a bit frustrated and fighting with it for quite a bit. Again, it's pretty much all my fault. I should have done a better job at preparing for this mode or had the right tools. It's kind of a common theme with this build. Okay, so I decided not to film the next bit because I was getting pretty frustrated, but what I ended up actually doing is sticking the cable down the middle of the housing and then slowly feeding the housing up the cable, and it worked. Okay, on to the rest. So that's the M8000 11 speed 11 to 42. Very nice looking cassette. It's the XT. This back wheel goes on and the bike's starting to really take shape. It's time to really get stuck in and tackle all the work that has to go in to getting this handlebar section ready. There's a lot of work here, a lot of work that makes a big difference. I got the hoods on, did a whole lot of cable management, and then started the process of bleeding and hooking up these brakes. It's a bit daunting because you got to cut. Right, I'm going back now. I decided to start with the front brake just in case I messed this whole process up, and then I didn't have to go and reroute all those cables all the way to the back. Everything went kind of smoothly. It's not that daunting a process. You just got to take your time with it and make sure you get everything right. I then ran the cable housing for the gear shifters, used that same process that I used for the last one. Much easier than what I was doing before, so I'm quite glad I actually did that, otherwise I would have just given up. I sized this chain. It was actually exactly the right length, which helps. If you're sizing chains, what you do is you put the chain over the big cog in the front and big cog in the back, and you should have a 2-link overlap with these Shimano things. It varies a little bit with other bike brands, but turned out this chain was the perfect length, so I just ran it and got it connected up. The GRX stuff is just so easy to adjust and use, so 2 minutes later tightened everything up and had my gears running super smoothly. I then gave my pedals a little bit of a glow up and put them on the bike. These are my old Shimano XTR mountain bike pedals. I absolutely love these things. I've used them for thousands of kilometers. I think it's like the 6th bike that they've been on.
Riding on the top. We're going to start at the bottom and go to the top to avoid them.
Okay, last job on the whole bike. We're going to do some handlebar wrapping. I've only done this like twice, so I'm going to watch some more Park Tool videos and refresh myself, and then just do it. Just do it, and then the bike should be finished, which is very exciting. Whew. Well, that went alright. Seems like I actually know what I'm doing. Last little job was putting on the cycle computer. I've decided to go with the Magine C606. It's a $159 cycle computer with, you know, full touchscreen, navigation, the whole lot. I think it's going to be perfect for this bike. I'll leave a link for it down below. It's been a long day, but she's done. How sick is it? So good. It's the end of the day at the moment. It's been a long day, so we won't go for a ride today, but tomorrow definitely going to take it for a little spin. But before we do that, we should probably take a good look at it. It's pretty cool. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for watching this one. I had such a blast building this bike. If you have any questions or want to take a stab at how much this thing weighs, I'm going to be doing a video next with weighing the thing, taking it for a bit of a ride, and answering all of your questions. So if you want to take a guess at how much it weighs, bang that in the comments down below. Or if I've been unclear about anything, again, I'll answer that in the next video. So get subscribed. We're going to be taking this thing on a bit of an adventure. Yeah, heaps of fun coming. Again, thank you so much to Bamboo Bicycle Club for supporting the channel and giving me a chance to build this amazing bicycle. I've loved the process of this the whole way from start to finish. It's been an absolute blast, and I get a bike that I can ride and cherish forever. I'm so stoked. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, we'll see you in the next one, eh?